Ooh, going live. It's live.
It is live.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm Sihan.
I'm Brooke.
And you've joined us for Land Strong. This is our Devon Stowe webinar on making sure you have a good landing when you start a new role. So we're going to get started. Hope you can all see us. And this is recording live and you can hear as well. Let us know if you can't.
And afterwards, you'll be able to access the video if you want to watch it again.
Right. It's being recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel, and we'll post it on our website as well. Okay. Brooke, do you want to get us started?
Yes. Sihan and I started Devon Stowe back in October of 2015. We are an executive recruitment and leadership development firm. We work globally, which makes it a lot of fun. We are our biggest product that we have is our Search, Select, and Grow, and that speaks to hiring executives and helping executives land strong. We want to make sure that there is coaching that's available, There we go. Search, sorry, this is our first time, guys. Search, Select, and Grow. So what that means is that we actively recruit very talented leadership, and then we support them for the first 90 days that they are on the job. And what that helps is it helps give a new candidate, a new person in a position, a coach to help navigate the situation and kind of figure stuff out and have some backup. We are big on diversity. Oh, and we also have our leadership programs. So we go in and we help companies address some leadership issues, make your leadership stronger.
Yeah, and work with teams as well, right?
Yes.
We'll go in and support a team in their launch, getting some alignment, making sure there's a good dynamic going on within the team, and then support any individuals within that team. So that kind of falls very sort of succinctly into our leadership programs.
Right. We are big on diversity. We identify diversity as gender, culture, age, orientation, physical ability, and experience, all of which is the golden thread through which all of our conversations go, not just with our candidates, but also with our clients. We are passionate about what we do. We are very, very interested in making sure that leadership embraces everybody on your team, making sure that there is a trustworthy environment, that communication is good, and that at the end of the day, what all of that means is that you've got a work environment that really flourishes. We are passionate, again, about the diversity, and we're passionate about meaty conversations.
Or beefy conversations.
Or beefy conversations. We were giggling about that last night. Good conversation is the key to any success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
So let's get stuck into the presentation, Brooke. One of the sort of preface about starting a new role that we talk about is that actually your first 3 months isn't a race. It's about sussing out the landscape. It's about you being there and providing operational ability because that leader has been missing or has left. And so it's a very tactical time. Not a great time for making changes, but a great time to assess how people are going to respond to some changes. So sometimes that's about making very small steps and seeing what the response is. But as we get into it, you'll see there's a whole lot more to it than that.
The first bit that we want to speak to is about the clarity. Gaining clarity on why you're there, who you're working for, what are the ifs, what are the hows, what would happen if this happened, what would happen if that happened, and when am I expected to deliver what key points. The flow of our day depends on our ability to make assumptions in the absence of facts, and that's very true. We all make assumptions It's human nature to make routine assumptions. We make assumptions about, we're at the grocery store and, oh no, am I out of half and half, or am I out of apples? And you just make the assumption, you go, can I go with your gut? You make assumptions about what's going on at home. You make assumptions about what's going on at work. You make delegation assumptions. He's always been good with these projects, therefore he'll be good with this one, without checking in and making sure that this really is something that the person who you're thinking about would be interested in. You're just taking other people for granted. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that in the clarity aspect of it, that there is a new level of accountability that we assume with the familiarity of our new environment. We want to make sure that the assumptions, you put the assumptions aside and you ask more questions. You are more present in what's going on rather than taking certain situations for granted. Sometimes our biases, or sometimes your bias over your confidence or your propensity for groupthink will trip you up. And what that means is that what you need to do is you need to confirm the facts. Again, you need to ask questions. You need to be big on good communication. You need to check in with people and ask people what's going on. Now, sometimes people will give you a straightforward answer, and sometimes the answers that you're going to get in your new position aren't so straightforward, and you're going to have to make sure that you are able to confirm the facts without making too many assumptions. It's a very thin line to walk. It's very possible to do it. And again, your curiosity is going to be your best tool, and ask questions.
Yeah, and Brooke, it's often the case that because either you're stepping up or it's a familiar territory, it's the same industry, you feel like this should be something that you know and understand. You understand the culture of the organization and
Completely.
so on. And sometimes that's really not the case. It may seem very similar. It's like Brits and Americans, right?
Oh my! Oh no! I have learned a lot of wonderful, wonderful sayings from you in terms of our different languages.
Yeah, so exactly. So we have different ways, different sense of humor, but also we have different histories that are colliding, and we're there to do a job. We've been chosen. That's fantastic. But you're right. It's really important to ask these key questions. So what kind of questions should we be asking, Brooke?
So what kind of questions we're going to be asking is, what does my manager want me to achieve in my first 100 days? And that's a question that you need to establish a strong line of communication with your manager, and make sure that you make regular appointments with your manager, that you go over what his or her expectations are. You want to know what motivates your manager. What does he or she care about above all else? Sometimes that's clear, and sometimes that's not. And again, don't make assumptions, but you really have to listen. How does my manager define success for me in this role? The other part about this, how do I define success for me in this role also? So it's a marriage of those two. You have to make sure that those two things are in sync. And does my manager know how I define success for me in this role? Have I communicated that successfully? Where are the gaps between my definition of success and my manager's definition of success? And how can I bridge that gap? Again, you're asking questions, you're communicating, you're observing your new environment, you're trying to figure out how this whole thing goes. Do not stop just at your job description. That's key. You want to make sure that you are observing everything that's going on around you, and you want to make sure that your job description, because job descriptions can be very vague, and sometimes what happens is that the entire scope of what's expected of you has not been outlined thoroughly. And then all of a sudden, things start to blow up. I can't stress it enough.
And there's the context too, right, Brooke? There's the context of the role that you're coming into? Have there been changes? Is this job exactly the same as the predecessor's role,
Right.
or have more things been added? And that kind of information is invaluable.
It is.
To work out what your game plan is going to be.
The other thing is that was your predecessor's role, was it considered successful by the team, or was it considered were there huge issues and you're walking into something that is not outlined in the written description, your written job description? Check back in regularly. Often regular communication with your manager is key. Regular communication with your team is key. Just keep that line of communication open. It will do wonders.
Yesterday when we were talking, Brooke, you had some really creative ways for getting around slippery managers.
Yes.
Who always have a reason not to meet with you or will cancel.
Oh, we've all had that wonderful manager. I can think of one specifically who I absolutely adored when I was working for the Department of Energy. And he was the slippery one, I gotta say. He was pretty crafty when it came to slipping out of his office or not being able to keep, one-on-one appointments. And so I became very proficient at knowing when he came to work. So I would show up early. I figured out what kind of car he drove. So I would sit in the window and watch for his car to hit the parking lot, and then, walk him to his car, or walk with him to a meeting. Sometimes I would, where I worked, you couldn't really go off site. It was too far out of the way. And I always knew exactly where he was having lunch, and I would just stop by. So checking in regularly doesn't always mean making a formal appointment with your manager. It just means having a short conversation with he or she in the hallway, after a meeting, whatever. And those times are just as beneficial as having a scheduled sit down in the office meeting. You also want to meet with each member of your team. And this is something that you will have to do for the entire length of your new position. Good communication, open communication, trustworthy communication are all key to checking in with each team member and understanding what the environment is, and understanding what the alliances are, how things went before with the team before you arrived there, what they're hoping for. You just got to keep that line of communication open.
Okay, so the second piece that we promised that we'd cover is landscape, and this is really, really important. It's worth taking the time to do this. This is about gathering cultural information about historical relationships. What are the political hot potatoes that actually someone's thrown your way because you're the new person? And your ability to be able to navigate all of that, eyes wide open, and be effective is going to be key to how you succeed and how you go about it. So as Brooke was saying, understanding your manager's communication style and learning to adapt to it. That's not being untrue to yourself, by the way. That is purely reflecting, hearing their language, using some of the same phrases and so on that help you connect with your manager at their level, with language and words and phrases and tone and style and so on that they understand.
It's also a learning opportunity, because as you grow in your career, what you're doing is that you will be mirroring a lot of the things that you've learned from managers past. So that stuff is really important.
Learn what motivates each member of your team. Everyone's got their hook, their reason for being there, or their reason for being dissatisfied. And so you need as many people on your team, literally and figuratively, as possible. And you're only going to know that by having those one-on-ones, as you were saying.
Yes.
Learn the culture of the organization and figure out ways to fit in. So what's the social calendar look like? How do people get involved in the community? What goes on? What sports do people play? Do people socialize outside of work? Maybe they have children of similar ages. These are all really key things for figuring out how you can connect with people.
When I was working for the Department of Energy, one of the biggest things that we had in our office, that was a social event, was the men's NCAA basketball Final Four. I always remember that every year as being such a big deal. Huge team building, having nothing to do with writing nuclear safety limits. But I got to tell you, it was so much fun. Got to know people so much better every time that came around.
Right. And that's it. And that's appreciating the networks and the relationships. There'll be loyalties there that people have worked together for a very long time. They may not be in the same departments. They may play very different roles, but they've been there. They started maybe the same day 10, 15 years ago. Those relationships will be really strong. And part of your observation and your questioning is to find out more about that.
And those relationships are what your team members use in order to be successful. That's how they get stuff done. That's how we all get stuff done, is by making those friendships and relationships.
And here's the hot potato.
There it is.
This happens so often, and is often the reason that someone actually doesn't end up staying is because they've been thrown something. We make the assumption that it's our job to fix it. The legitimacy of that is what you need to question. Mm-hmm. And whether it really is the hot potato that people are telling you. Because very often everyone has a different take on what the scenario is. They'll have their gripes. They'll have their issues with it. That's what you're going to be hearing. You're going to be looking for facts. You're going to be looking for information. Is this really a hot potato? Maybe it's just what everyone sees it as, but maybe it all hung on a particular individual or a team or a project that didn't quite work out in the past, and there's some legacy stuff there. So that one's really, really important to figure out and work out whether that really is part of your remit or not.
We strongly recommend not making assumptions around hot potatoes. Big time.
Exactly. All right, Brooke.
Relationships. While good processes and infrastructure are a sign of an efficient organization, as a leader, the key to your success is people. As you grow in seniority, it's your relationships and the strength of them that will determine your success. I can't speak to this enough. My success, be it working for the Department of Energy or being self-employed, has always hinged around being successful with people, understanding your relationships, understanding how different people work. That has been so key. It amazes me how strong having good relationships with people can be.
And just to that point, as you go higher up the ranks, as it were, in organizations, it really is more and more about your ability to connect with people and understand people, motivate them and inspire them. And very often people have progressed through an organization because they're a subject matter expert, or they are phenomenal at processes or re-engineering things. Right. And that's their comfort zone. And they neglect the people side of it, and really find that a stretch for them in connecting with people, listening to them, and flexing to different communication styles. So, but it is completely key. All the issues around executive coaching with senior leaders is about their ability to connect with other people and understand other people and hear them. So it's all about that, right?
Oh, it is. And there will be times in your organization when you first start your job and you will come across somebody either on your team or in the upper management, and you'll think like, oh my goodness, this is there's something in terms of how we are working together. There could be just some tension or something. And I have to tell you to persevere with those relationships. I have learned so much from sticking with those relationships, really nurturing those relationships and learning as much as I can from those people. I cannot stress enough how important that is.
So what are the main things that we need to consider about relationships?
You need to understand the network, the alignment, and people with informal power. So you need to understand how the office works. You need to understand how you need to understand the knowledge, the history, and the complexity of your network. You have to understand how your team works in all of those three categories.
So the history of that team, for example, right?
Team,
what that team's been through, how many leaders it's had, potentially what success of projects, how they've worked together,
how long they've been there,
what their common ground is, right? And then
if they're happy in that position, or if they're just there for the paycheck. I mean, they're their own personal investment. Are they there and they hate it, or are they there and they're really looking forward to the new management, the new going forward?
And then the alignment, right? This is really key. It's because if you don't tread carefully here and you don't understand the alignments at play here, this can be your hot potato.
Oh
right?
my God. Biases and gossip, big no-no. Big, huge no-no. You want to focus on facts. If you get sucked into the biases, the gossip, making assumptions about people in terms of their abilities or their alliances without fact checking, recovery is hard. Recovery is also sometimes impossible. It is what can make or break a new position.
And that's what, and very often this is the linchpin of it all for someone starting in a new role, particularly where there's a great deal of change.
Oh, without a doubt.
That ability to make strong alignments with individuals, stakeholders, influencers, and so on, early on can determine the rest of your time within the organization and whether you stay ultimately.
Right, exactly. I mean that could be the last day of your job if it really goes badly. People with informal power. So when speaking to that, I draw on my own personal experience, and I can remember being a secretary in the communications department at FMC Corporation a few moons ago. And I can remember how important it was, what the network, the group of administrative assistants, and how we all worked together so well and got stuff done. When people wanted to make meetings with my boss, it was me that they went through a lot of the time to find out if she had time in her schedule. It was me who helped kind of shape in terms of because I was so well aligned with her, that making sure that she knew how things were going in the office, what the landscape was going on, what the chatter was going on in the office. And so I had her ear all the time. It's very important that you align yourself with the people with informal power within that office. It makes a big difference.
And it may not just be assistants, right? It may be individuals who just are quite magnanimous characters within the team,
completely,
who don't have the title within the organization,
but they have the knowledge.
They have the knowledge, and they have people's ear, and they motivate in their own way within their team. They're the catalyst that moves things forward, makes things happen or not.
Well, and they've also, a lot of those people make alliances with other people in the office that you would have never thought of, and then all of a sudden, now you've got somebody else on your team. I mean, it's very important to keep that degree of separation as small as possible. You really want to know as many people in the office as you possibly can and what they're all about. Okay,
so results, and this is something that I think catches people in the sort of energy of you're out to prove that you were a fantastic hire, that you were the right hire. And all that honeymoon period of being in a new job, that first 3 months I am here to, I've been brought on because no one else can do this, and this is a major change program going on, and I've done this before. This is completely my comfort zone, but in that adrenaline, in that excitement of feeling invincible sometimes, we can also rush into making short-sighted decisions, not enough information, and just like making the wrong alliances early on. These are the things, because everyone's watching, right? Everyone's watching to see, okay, she's been brought on, he's been brought on to lead this team. It's a difficult, everyone knows it's a difficult team. Everyone's watching to see how this person is going to deliver, how they're going to perform. And yeah, they are watching. So all the more important to take your time and figure that piece out.
Yeah, being impetuous is not going to get you good results.
Right. So this is the coming together of everything we've been talking about, Brooke. It's the being in observation mode, watching, asking, listening, right? And building your relationships. And something that we didn't touch on earlier, but if you're promoted within a role, sometimes the nature of your relationship with your previous peers changes. And they may feel uncomfortable and don't know how much
if the reporting has changed. Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So those kinds of shifts happen, and then you're trying to get that balance between tactical delivery and actual planning for some change later on. Right. So here's some things to get you thinking, and to be asking of people, how soon am I actually expected to deliver results? And what's the right pace of those results for me, for my manager, and my team? How am I building credibility and trust among the team, my peers, my superiors? Who else is watching? Who are the other stakeholders that I need to
identify,
take into account? How do I get my information, and how am I putting that into how I respond to a situation, and how do I slot that into a plan for now or the future?
Not just for you, but also for your team.
Right. How can I secure some quick wins that mean I'm delivering on some sticking points that there have been in the absence of someone in your role, and how can I start laying some groundwork for future initiatives? And sometimes that's I mentioned it earlier, but it's that testing on a small, low risk level. How do people respond to a change? Because that's incredibly informative. That pulls out and helps you identify who your supporters are, who your resistors are, and why.
But that testing requires asking questions.
Right.
Always.
Right.
If you want to address some immediate needs and then lay the groundwork for future initiatives, you really need to ask questions and, again, not make any assumptions. You're not the only person who knows what's going on.
And then, what's my level of comfort and tolerance for opposing views? You want those the quicker you can get the opposing views out in the air, out on your radar, factored in, the sooner you will be ready to start making some changes, because that is all incredibly valuable information. It's not comfortable information. It's not always what we want to hear.
No, but it's imperative
really,
to have opposing views on a team, because that way you've got those checks and balances. There's always a sense of checks and balances on a really well-humming team.
Right. So 2 final points on this are: don't take any abrupt action, right?
Oh my goodness.
Don't do anything in haste. You want to really take the time to figure it out. Run it by, once you figure out some alliances, run it by those individuals, some of your thoughts about what might be possible. Has this been done before? really test it out, find ways of testing it out first.
Or map it out yourself. Sit down and figure out that if then. So
Right.
if I do take action on this, what's the consequence? And am I willing to own that consequence? Right. Will my team be willing to own that consequence? And is it worth it?
Yeah, yeah. And that gets into how do you elicit all that information from your team?
Right.
Maybe you need to run some workshops. Maybe you need to do some team, some work around the team to build some common ground and understanding and a focus.
Right.
And then the other thing is results come in all shapes and sizes. Really, they do. And sometimes if you're making lots of small wins, that's great publicity. That's great trust building and credibility building, not to be underestimated. If you can do a sequence of small wins that show that you understand the landscape and you understand the alliances and you're respectful of the history of that team, the project, the organization, that's going to help you enormously. And at some point, those small wins actually end up being a significant change process.
Right. They're sustaining. The small wins are truly sustaining, without a doubt. So we wanted to know, does anybody have any questions for us? Hi. No?
I don't know if we've got people.
Oh, goodbye.
We just wanted to share with you, in closing, thank you for being here. We're just going to check and see who's managed to get online. And let's see, where are we at here? I think our screen has, there we go, we're back. We've got 3 viewers, Brooke.
That's fantastic. Hi.
So if we have any questions, we're happy to take those off after this event. If you want to email them to us, either brooke@devonstowe.com, siham@devonstowe.com.
Or our phone numbers are on the website.
Our website too. And we're on Facebook, Devonstowe News. You'll find us on LinkedIn company page. We're on Twitter.
Yep.
At Devonstowe. And our website is devonstowe.com. This event will be listed on the site as well.
Yeah.
So
under our events tab.
Yeah. So check back in. We've got more events planned throughout the year, and we hope you've enjoyed this one. Right?
Yes, very much, very, very much.
Been
Thank
cool.
you for joining us.
Thank you.